Elon Musk recently said he believes there could be up to 1 million robotaxis on the road by next year. I want to break that down with you, but first, it's been just over a week since the network launched. You're one of the lucky few who's had the opportunity to experience it. So far, what have your key takeaways been?
Well, I would say, first of all, that the service is probably the most perfectly boring ride hail service that I have ever experienced. Um, so much less drama than, and I'm not someone who takes Uber rides a lot, but I've done it a little bit. And usually, there's always some aggressive driving or something about it that just like, yeah, we didn't have to do that. And that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about the Tesla Robotaxi service is that it was so chill, so relaxing. I was never uncomfortable with the way that it was driving. It had like the perfect combination of smoothness and caution without being timid or skittish. And the ride was smooth, the acceleration, the braking was smooth. They have a little bit of work to do kind of in the end and the beginning of the ride. It's already good, but it could be a little bit better still. This is especially true when you compare it to Waymo's service. And they have a lot of funkiness at the pickup and drop off of their rides as well. And so I would say that Tesla's already kind of at that level or probably better even a little bit than Waymo. But yeah, there's a lot to be excited about with what we have seen this week that the service is launching. One of the takeaways that James Dalma had was that this doesn't feel like a product demo or a product test where they're trying to see, hey, is this going to work? This feels like a legitimate launch. And we are now going to be in the phase where they are doing this expansion and scaling thing consistently from now until that point where we do have, 1 million or more of these robo taxis on the road by Tesla. And I 100% agree with that they have solved all of the major issues. And Elon even, I think, confirmed on a reply to Farzad that they're hoping to be able to reduce the number of people that are monitoring these cars from, like, right now you've got one-to-one car and safety monitoring, and that monitor is in the car. I assume we're going to be taking those monitors out of the car very soon and going to, one remote safety monitor per 2 cars, and then it'll be one remote safety monitor per 3 cars, and then it'll be one safety monitor per 4 cars. And the more cars that a safety monitor can actually oversee at a time, then the better your unit economics and the faster then you can begin to scale. And that's going to be the key thing that we're looking at here is what does the scaling look like? And what is what is that exponent? What is the rate of growth? Because this is going to definitely be something that is compound scaling. So it's not just going to be linear where, this week we have 20 robo taxis, and then the week after that we have 30, and then the week after that we have 40. This is going to be an exponential where we're going to go from 10 cars and, maybe next month we have 20 cars, but then maybe the month after that we have 40 cars, and the month after that we have 80, and then just continuing to double and double and double. And it doesn't take that many doubling periods for us to get to that 1 million vehicle mark. And that's what we have to look forward to. And I'm just really excited because this is a completely new primitive for transportation. There's never been a transportation system that had the ability to provide transportation to this many places, this cheaply, this safely. It's going to completely re-underwrite the entire road system in the whole world over a decent time horizon. But it's going to start here in the United States because this is where the most money is to be made in doing that. And yeah, we're going to be in that transitionary period now for the next, really, I think it's going to be super clear within 2 to 3 years that this is where things are heading, just kind of like it was with Uber beginning to take over more and more markets in the early period of Uber's growth. And then 10 years from now, I would expect for Tesla's Robotaxi network to just be absolutely dominating transportation in the US and being a significant presence in a number of other places around the world.
Hey nerds! As you probably noticed, this is a brand new show for my channel.
Starting today, David and I will be bringing you more original shows just like this every week that you won't be able to find anywhere else. As we do, we're going to be experimenting with both the exact format and the topics. We hope that you'll enjoy, but we'll also realize that this might not be everyone's cup of tea. Either way, let us know what you think in the comments. And with that said, let's get back to the show.
So you're one step ahead of me. I wanted to bring up this post Farzad wrote on X, and Elon did reply. Hey Elon, when does Tesla expect to get to 3-to-1 or more Robotaxi to supervisor ratio? Per my model, it looks like Robotaxi is at about break even at 2-to-1, very profitable at 3-to-1, and widely profitable at 5-to-1 and above. Elon replied, as soon as we feel it's safe to do so, probably within a month or two. We continue to improve the Tesla AI with each mile driven. So personally, I don't think teleoperators are meant to play a major role in the long-term vision for robotaxis. They might be useful in rare edge cases, but if Tesla ends up relying on them too much, that could be a serious bottleneck, both operationally and financially. What's your take on my comments and also Farzad's post?
Well, I think this is something that people are pointing to, and they're just assuming that because there is that safety monitor in the passenger seat right now, that this is going to be a permanent feature of the system. And I think that that's kind of a silly assumption because we've already seen other players, whether it's Waymo or Cruise, they do need to launch with some in-car safety monitoring. Now, for those companies, that person was actually in the driver's seat, so they had the ability to take direct control of the car. So I think Tesla's already kind of a step ahead in this launch because they don't have that person in the driver's seat. They actually have them in the passenger seat, which means that they have a much more limited set of things and options that are available to them if something does happen. Now, I do think that Tesla has already done the phase of having a person in the driver's seat. That we know that they've been testing this whole system for over a year. Definitely heavily in Palo Alto and the San Francisco area, but also some here in Austin. And so I think they've already done that. It's not that they didn't ever do that. It's just that they did that while the system was being used privately before the public release. But we have also seen just the way that Tesla's approaching this technology is similar, and the roadmap is similar to a lot of the ways that they have developed FSD overall. And we know that early on in the development of FSD, Tesla relied heavily on humans who worked in the Buffalo, New York location to do a lot of the hand labeling of the data that was being fed into the system that was trying to teach this artificial intelligence driver in software how to drive and how to recognize things in the scene. And that was a completely necessary step to take, but it was also completely unsustainable. That there was no way to actually feed the FSD training with enough data if all of that data had to be labeled by humans, because we would have needed to hire, hundreds of thousands of human labelers in order to actually have that quantity of data that was needed. And then it's even worse because not only do you need all those humans, but humans are slow. And so you have this huge workforce of people and you can't actually react to the data that you are wanting to pull in real time. And you're going to have a significant delay in the amount of processing that has to happen to that. And so they understood both of those things at the same time. They started with those human data labelers, and then they worked on developing a system that they used these data labelers that they had to begin creating a completely automated system that could do all of that labeling on its own without any human input, with minimal human input. I mean, I think there still is a little bit of quality and error checking and stuff that goes on that is done by humans, but it's very, very minimal, and they don't need nearly the number of people that they needed before. And they're processing, hundreds or thousands or potentially even tens of thousands times more data today than they were when they had that human auto labeling team running at its peak headcount. And so I think this is going to be a very similar situation where we're going to take an abundance of caution at this point in time. We are going to use humans to just make sure that this is not just safe, but dramatically safer than any other transportation system in the world. And Tesla is going to be held to that standard by the public because, like Waymo has already had safety incidents. Obviously, human drivers have safety incidents all the time. Uber, one of their huge expenses is the insurance that they have to have for their rides because they're operating this commercial service, and Uber has deep pockets. Whenever something does happen, those lawsuits tend to be much larger than if it was just two private individuals getting into a wreck. And so, like, these are the levels that we're going to have to understand all these dynamics. And the public, because Tesla is so high profile, the name Tesla attracts more attention than Uber, and it certainly attracts more attention than the name Waymo. And the vast majority of times that Waymo is going to be mentioned in the public eye, it's going to be in relationship to Tesla specifically. And because of this, that we just have to be extremely cautious and extremely careful. And I think that's really played into why Tesla has actually taken this approach where they kept their system as a level 2 system for as long as possible, where you do have a human who is ultimately responsible for the safety of the vehicle, and they're being assisted by this AI driving assistant that is incredible. And those two together are significantly safer than any other driving system on the planet. They've done that because they really do care about safety, and because their risk for safety incidents is so high. And so, in saying all of that, what we're getting into now is the point where we have so much human supervision, effort, and time has gone into this system that it is now beginning to break out to those safety levels where the AI driver by itself can actually reach those 10x safer than human driver, 10x safer than Uber driver, 10x safer than UPS driver levels without actually having that safety monitor. And they're continuing to improve that. And once they really reach those levels where they don't actually, having that safety monitor present doesn't get you any extra safety, then they will be able to just scale the presence of these drivers on the roads, operating robotaxi rides as a service, insanely fast and very, very, very wide. So yeah, that's where, we're talking about not just a million cars on the road, but James Dalma has estimated that at scale, we probably need 25 million robotaxi ride hail vehicles just in the United States. And that gets you to the point where you're providing transportation across basically the whole country, like 95% of the population, something like that, and at prices that are 4 or 5 times cheaper than current average ride hail prices. And so people are using it very, very extensively for the majority of their transportation needs. And, right now we're only making just under 2 million Teslas a year. And so when you do the math, you realize that's, a number of years worth of dedicated production to actually get that many robotaxis on the road here in the United States. And that's just the United States market. Then there's a whole global market left to capture after that.
So if James Dalma is predicting 25 million robotaxis alone just in the US, realistically, teleoperators can't be a big variable. They can't be a big factor in that. That scale operation would be just way too large. When do you see the teleoperator to robotaxi ratio getting 10 to 1, 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1? Do you think that's realistic in the next 18 months?
Well, so I would say we probably don't want to think of these people as teleoperators. We definitely want to think of them as remote supervisors, that there's going to be a limited number of options for them to actually tell the vehicle, go here, do this. It's going to be more like, hey, just don't do that, and then figure something else out, is going to be much more what it is. So it's not like this person, for the most part, as we grow, is going to be, sitting in a station where they've got a steering wheel and, pedals, and they're actually trying to operate the vehicle. You can do that somewhat. That's going to be very, very limited in scale. If you're wanting to get beyond a couple of cars per operator, you're definitely not going to want to do it using that type of a system. And I think their goal is to get to the point where we are beyond that number of remote employees to vehicles, probably within the next 2 to 3 months, maybe a little bit longer. But yes, I think that artificial intelligence is definitely on a path of exponential progress and growth, and we're seeing these continued investments in Cortex, to where just the core technology and the car in itself and the intelligence that it has should be able to be at that 10x safer than human level very, very soon, if it's not already. definitely that's within the realm of possibilities within the next 18 months. I mean, we've seen just in the last 18 months, we've gone from having version 11 of FSD that was mostly, it was this weird mishmash of human written code and artificial intelligence neural networks. And it was clunky. And then they went to the end-to-end approach in version 12. And since that time until now, it's only been 18 months, and we've gotten from beginning this full AI driving system to robotaxis in less than 18 months. So I think the next 18 months, we are, absolutely within, it's reasonable to assume that full AI driver will be significantly, at least 10x safer than humans. And once it's 10x safer than humans, I don't even know that, I think you're already talking about one monitor to 1,000 cars and rapidly dwindling beyond there.
So let's say the need for teleoperators, or as you said, supervisors, gets solved. Based on what you've seen so far, do you see any other major bottlenecks that could slow Tesla down from scaling at a reasonable pace over the next 18 months?
Yeah, I think the bottlenecks that we're going to be facing, there's like a series of them. The first one is just going to be, making sure that we are absolutely safe and making sure that nothing crazy happens with the riders or the system. That's going to be at least probably 6 months where we're really just focusing on the core safety of the system. And during that time, they're going to be working on lots of other parts of the system, all the logistics, charging and cleaning and fleet operations within a location. But once you get your safety validation really down, then that's when you start to run into some of those other bottlenecks where it's going to be a matter of, how many cars can you actually put in a specific location. And because you're going to want potentially up to like 10,000 ride hail vehicles for one major metro area in order to provide the type of experience where someone can call for a car and then it can be there with inside a minute reliably to pick you up. And so, if you want to operate 10,000 robotaxis just in the Austin metro area, well, then you've got to have a place to charge them and clean them. And you've got to work with the city, and then you've got insurance, and you've got to do that just in Austin. And then you've got to figure out, okay, how do you scale that and make that repeatable so you can roll it out in the next city and the next city and the next city and the next city. And I think that we will hit those types of bottlenecks in the next 18 months as well, once we have really proven out the full safety of the system. And those will be the gating factors. The thing that I don't think is going to be a gating factor for the growth of the system is the production capacity of robotaxis, that we can continue to invest in putting Model Ys and then eventually cybercabs on the road. And I think this is, a big reason why we haven't seen a faster launch of the cybercab itself, is that we really want to have ironed out all the kinks in being able to roll out geography by geography before we start ramping up the cybercab massively, because we're probably going to be producing well over 2 million cybercabs per year once that has fully ramped. And if you're doing that, then you need to have 2 million cybercabs worth of market that you are expanding every year as well. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into the logistics of providing that. And then we haven't even talked about the regulatory is going to be another one of these things. And so it's hard to say which of those bottleneck items falls in what order, but that at some point in the next probably 24 months, every single one of those things will be the bottleneck at that point of time. And when it is the bottleneck, that will be the thing that Tesla's most focused on as they continue to scale.
So considering the bottlenecks you've just mentioned and we've talked about, how likely do you think it is that in 18 months' time, Tesla has a couple of 100,000 or even 1 million robotaxis operating in the fleet?
This is the classic challenge that Elon has talked about, where because this is an exponential, that even small changes in speed at the beginning can end up having major impacts on whether you hit that at 18 months or at 24 months or at 12 months. But I think, yeah, hundreds of thousands of robotaxis at the end of 2026 feels like a very highly likely scenario. It's possible that we get there sooner than that. It is also possible that, things have been delayed and we're slightly behind. But even if that's true, we're still on one of those exponential paths. And it just means that you hit the same type of scale a few months later and you're still growing rapidly and it's still, taking over markets at an insane speed.